they went ahead and inserted an internal monitor for the mom. And they didn't tell her that it was going to be painful because she was only a little bit dilated. They didn't even tell her they were going to do it. And it really hurt. She yelled, she cried. And when they left, she said, "I feel like I've been raped." Yeah, if people want to have a home birth, and they want to have a home birth with a certified professional midwife, they pay for it out of pocket. Sometimes their insurance reimburses, sometimes it doesn't. So consequently, I end up mostly working with Euro-American, well-educated women with money.
My two daughters were also fortunate with their choices of when to have children, so I have 3 grandsons by choice. The first one was born to my first daughter on January 22nd. My second daughter and her female partner, since 2000, decided that they also wanted a baby. So her partner had in vitro treatments and fertilization. My daughter helped her during a difficult pregnancy, and my third grandson was born 6 weeks early in 2007. As a lesbian committed couple, they don't have the parental rights of straight married couples. LGBTQ rights are important and are fighting for rights that have to do with reproductive justice.
I remember early on when Morgan was starting to look very pregnant, people would talk to her and they would turn their back to me, and it would be like, I'm not a part of the conversation here. I remember when Ellery was born, we were in the hospital, and there was a doctor there who came in, and they looked at me, and they looked at my partner on the hospital bed, and then they looked at me, and then they turned their back to me, just like the other person, and started telling my partner about the health of our child. It took 2 days for us to figure out how the birth certificate would be done, because they wouldn't believe us at first. The first people came in and said, I'm transgender, so technically I'm the other biological parent. And then the next day their boss comes in and says, well, we need to figure out this form, and you can't do this because, you're just trying to sneak onto the form somehow.
And I said to her, I'm just curious why you don't go to communion. Your father and I practice birth control. I said, big deal. She said, well, the church is against that. Pope Paul VI had written a letter, and that birth control was wrong for Catholics, artificial birth control. Then I said, well, the doctor was right. I'm sure God doesn't want you to die. I mean, what kind of a God is that wants you to die? Not a good one. And she says, I know. And she says, but there's the rule. Then I got really angry at my own church.
I represent young women under the age of 18 when they seek permission from a judge to get an abortion without notifying their parents. That's otherwise known in the legal world as a judicial bypass proceeding. Normally, if you are under 18, when you have a medical or surgical procedure, your parent has to either consent to that or be notified. And the law used to be that a parent had to be notified. So the law changed some time ago whereby a young woman under the age of 18 could get permission from a judge to have an abortion without the notification of their parent or their legal guardian. There are certain requirements for that. You can't just walk into juvenile court and ask the judge to grant you permission. There are certain requirements that have to be met. Primarily, the young woman has to show that she is sufficiently mature and well enough informed to intelligently make the decision on her own whether or not to have an abortion. I guess I'll talk to you for a second about what sorts of girls come to get this notification, because I think there's probably a little bit of a misconception about that. All sorts of young women come to get this procedure or to get this kind of permission. I think it spans socioeconomic levels, race, age groups, although most of them are 15, 16, and 17. And very many of them are actually quite accomplished. President of a senior class. I had one young woman that brought me a 2-page resume of all her extracurricular activities. So these are typically young women who have a lot going on, actually, and have a very bright future ahead of them, most of them, and have really given a lot of thought to whether or not they are financially and emotionally and psychologically capable of having a child at this particular time in their lives. And they also give a lot of thought to what the child's life would be like if they were to carry their pregnancy to term and actually give birth to that child.
So then the next thing that happened, of course, was that I missed my period. And I started to worry. Now, my boyfriend, whose name I have fortuitously forgotten, had assured me that he was probably sterile. I had no idea what part of your cycle you were fertile. I had no idea. So I went over to the Cornell Library, this beautiful building with the chimes on the top, which is an icon for every Cornellian, and tried to find a book that told me about women's reproductive lives and business and so on and so forth. But I became convinced I was pregnant. And of course I had all these symptoms. You know, I could look at my stomach and just could see it expanding. I didn't know, you know, that you were likely to get sick or anything like that. I had no idea that. Our whole lives is really valuable. You are really fortunate to have that program in this church. And I've since all this happened, I have been the director of the Ohio Religious Coalition for Reproductive Choice from 1999 to 2010. And I taught the Sunday that was about, what are your options? Now you're pregnant, what are your options? And I would say, well, you can carry the baby to term and have it. You can carry the baby to term and place it for adoption. You can have an abortion. And unfortunately, now you can have an abortion. My first child is a biological child. My second child is adoptive and biracial. He's 47. And I've had an abortion and I've had a miscarriage. So I figured I was pretty well qualified to talk about what are your options. Our lives is important, and that knowledge that you get is important, not just to avoid having children that you don't want or abortions that you don't need, but to avoid this kind of emotional and physical turmoil that I went through.
Abortions were illegal, and anytime a woman wanted to terminate a pregnancy, it was against the law. I had to go alone. I had to get on a bus and go out to a hotel on West Broad Street here in Columbus. I went to the second floor. Actually, it was a motel, and it's still there, and every time I drive past it, I look at it. I went up to the second floor and knocked on the door I was told to knock on, and a man in a doctor's outfit with a mask over his face answered the door and invited me in. And he had me lay down on the bed, and he did the procedure. He gave me a Kotex pad, which is what we used in those days. And I got on the bus and I rode home.
A lot of people hold the stereotype that women who have abortions are young, unmarried teenagers. This is not true for many women, and was not for me. We had health insurance, but could not afford the copay on birth control. When every dollar has somewhere to go, it has to go, and you're barely keeping the lights on, a $15 copay can be an impossibility. And the pregnancy test was positive. There was no question for either of us what we needed to do. The only question was how we would afford it. I confirmed that my insurance did not cover the expense of an abortion, which I believe was $400. Looking back, I still have no idea how we scraped together that money, but I know we never questioned the choice.
She told me that she was going to have an abortion, and for the first little bit I was like, no, but I want to be responsible, let's talk about this. And she's like, Eric, are you ready to be a father? I don't think so. And she was completely right, and that was really hard to hear. And part of me has always wondered if she actually had the abortion or whether she had the child. And that part of me that would love to be a parent still holds on to some idea that maybe I have a daughter out there. But every 2, 3, 4 times a year, I think, oh, I wonder if I'll get a call.
We would make good parents. Would we make good parents? Can we handle this? Maybe we're kidding ourselves and they're protecting the children from us. It's easy to begin to question yourself. While my husband and I didn't grow up privileged, we also never really experienced much in the way of bias either. This is probably the first time where we feel that we were being prejudiced, like based on our age, education, religion, family, and disabilities. It's strange being presented with possibility or even the reality that your worthiness is being judged solely on some check marks on the form and relying on perceptions and biases of others to fulfill your dream. How can they do this? They don't know us.
When I was married, I started trying to get pregnant for about 3 years with my then husband and was not able to conceive a child. So I started a support group for other women who were patients of my same infertility doctor, came to adopt a baby girl. I've got very, very mixed feelings about particularly abortion, and by that I mean that I don't think I could ever have one myself. Maybe in the case of incest or rape, I could have for myself. Having said that, I am extremely, extremely clear in my own mind that because it's such a complicated issue, everybody needs to be able to make choices for themselves.
And I'm a birth mother. For those of you who aren't familiar with the term, here are some other names that I've been called. I'm a first mother, a shadow mother, a biological mother, an unwed mother, an exiled mother, a damaged mother, an abandoning mother, a whore, an easy mark, a maladjusted female, trash, and a sinner. And those are the G-rated versions of what we have been called. The attitude was just lie. You know, lie to these women that it will be okay, you'll forget it, let us take your child and give them a much better life than a slut like you could give them. We were forced to surrender our children by a variety of subtle and not so subtle maneuvers, and then we were brutally abandoned, just abandoned.